Welcome to Team More Wine, sir, the Game of Thrones guerrilla cast for Boomtron's Optionated. I'm Elena, with me is Rachel, and we're here today to talk about the latest episode. So crack open a bottle like we just did, and sit back and listen in while we ramble and curse our way through a dissection of the episode. Episode 9, Blackwater, a.k.a. we decided to make half of a movie about one battle. Awesome! But what'd you think?
Well, I know what I think. What did you think? You give me what you thought first. You're the noob.
Okay, I loved that. I thought it was fucking ballsy of HBO to spend an entire episode on one battle. I mean, that really was. Like, they basically made a short movie about it. And I feel like we finally got some of the epic scale that has been a little bit missing from the show in terms of, like, the number of people and just the kind of mayhem and different sort of perspectives all converging on the same point that was involved with this. I thought that they had some pretty good action. I thought that they had a lot of good interplay between kind of personal drama and then bigger scale stuff. I got a different perspective on several characters, or maybe not a different, but a confirmation of my perspective on several characters that was really awesome. And I don't know, I felt like it was paced well. This episode was fucking awesome, and that was what I thought.
Yeah, no, agreed. I this was the episode that George Martin wrote. So I think, he knows the characters really well. He knows how to just put in a look or one line that conveys a lot. And I think that HBO, or at least I think some credit should go to the editors here. They were really, really smart about putting together this whole episode, because there have been a lot of movies that have come out in the last 5-10 years that have made audiences like really literate in watching battles and how battles work and all that shit. So they weren't able to do like the big, panning shots, right? There was a lot of like cut to scenes from like them firing arrows from the battlements to the ships, which, is cheaper because obviously they couldn't pan because there wasn't anything to pan to.
Right.
But it was smart because they chose to focus on filling the space, and making everything sort of really chaotic and not hard to follow, but sort of like, whoa, all these people are running around and some people are shouting lines and you have to listen really hard. And they went for how a battle feels more than how it looks from the air.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's kind of just taking the perspective this entire series has taken, which is, how does any of this look from one character's perspective? I mean, as the audience, the only reason we get kind of the grandiose Tolkien-esque perspective is that we see so many different points of view. But in terms of any given scene, what we see is the kind of on-the-ground
right, and that's a great nod
stuff
to the books themselves, because they're all done from, very specific points of view. And I'm also really happy because when they were mapping out the season and they didn't think that they were going to have the money to do the Blackwater, that this was going to be done all from like Cersei and Sansa's perspective, like from inside the Red Keep, like them waiting and getting updates. And you could see like echoes of that with Lance coming in and giving his reports and running back. But there were certain things about this episode that it echoes the rest of the series, in which they have a huge problem with conveying size and time. Right? I mean, this is something that has been happening in every single episode. Like the fact that they think that Lancel can run back and forth to the battlements like it's right outside, that's fucking stupid. It's like a whole city. It's on the other side of the city, at the walls, where the gate is, down by the river, the waterfront. And the Red Keep is way in the back, and there's like, we're talking like miles of city. And maybe he has a horse. I don't know. I feel like horses are mythical creatures in Westeros because there are never any. But it's like, oh, okay, I'll just run back and forth all night, giving you guys updates. And like that was kind of stupid. And then, of course, Tywin just showing up in the space of an episode, not believable, because Harrenhal's not that close.
Well,
but they didn't want us to forget that Tywin was on the road, so I understand why they cut it where they did.
Well, see, I actually to me it was a big surprise Tywin showing up to save the day like that, because I was under the impression, along with Arya, that he was about to go, like, stick it in Robb Stark's ass.
Oh, yeah, totally.
So, the fact that he actually went to save his daughter and grandson and, support the king and against the what he considers, obviously, to be the usurper Stannis is actually, that was... It didn't bother me because we'd seen him leave the last episode.
Right. I mean, this happens in the book. Tywin does show up. This isn't a change.
Yeah. Well, just in the timing of the show sense, it doesn't. Right. That didn't bother me because we never know like exactly how long it is between episodes or how in sync or out of sync the various storylines are.
Yeah.
And so we have been hearing from the point of view of the people in King's Landing that Stannis is 3 days away or, he's right at our gates, but we haven't really been able to sync that exactly with anyone else. Mm-hmm. And, Tywin has his whole, like, we're going to march through the night, we're going to leave right now, we're going to basically be, hauling ass like no soldiers have ever hauled it before. It didn't bother me that he got there.
Right. I mean, but he still had to meet up with all of the Tyrells and bring them in. I mean, there was a lot of marching.
Okay, so that was the Knight of Flowers that we saw at the end?
Yes, that was the Knight of Flowers wearing Renly's armor.
Okay, see, I missed that because I was just like, that looks like Loras, but how is that Loras? That's completely unaddressed that Loras was going to be involved at all.
Yeah, there's a great line from the books that, that says, like, the small folk thought they saw Renly's ghost that night because he was riding around in Renly's armor, killing people. But, of course, it was Loras.
Yeah.
But it makes you, I mean, he wouldn't have joined up with Stannis, right?
Hell no. Hell no. And,
there was nowhere else for them to go.
And his sister wants to be queen, so she's probably like, dude, get in with the Lannisters. Like, do it. And that's, I think, what Littlefinger was off to do, was to go treat with them, if I'm not mistaken, when he left Tywin. So, maybe they met, like, actually 2 miles below Mudgate,
Right. I mean, stuff is happening off camera, and that's why listening to and remembering where everybody is and what they're doing and listening to the dialogue is important. Some people don't understand that. Some people just start complaining about things. But...
Well, my one kind of, I guess, complaint about the timeline is more, was this supposed to take place over the course of a single night, or was this supposed to be an actual siege where it takes several days to several weeks before... Yeah,
they keep talking about like it was going to be a siege, and then they just kind of like, oh no, somebody's going to break through the gate at some point tonight.
Right, and they just sort of like stormed the battlements, and that was all it took, and you're like, really? Because that's,
Well, unfortunately, they don't have the men, right? I mean, Stannis has so many men that they can climb on each other and get up, and you could still kill half of them. And they would still be there, so I think it's hard to have a siege when you don't have the manpower to keep people off the walls.
Yeah, I mean, and the way it generally would work is you have fallback positions, all along until you kind of get to the castle, and maybe the city's taken, but the keep isn't. And
right,
this was just sort of like, as you say, it was very condensed. It was like it's all just right there together, and if they got over the walls, they might they were going to be climbing into the palace windows next.
Yeah, exactly. That, and if you haven't read the books or you're not familiar with how medieval cities work, then you might assume that. But I thought it was great. I loved that they put in all the stuff about the Hound fearing fire, and Davos losing his son, and Stannis being such a fucking badass.
Yeah, oh my god, yeah, Stannis was getting all the badass alerts, like, the whole time. I don't think I could have written pussy any more times in my live blog about Joffrey and his, look, I get it, the kid's never seen a battle, and you don't judge a soldier on how they react to their first battle, you judge them on how they react to their second. But at the same time, you see him, like, basically crying and running away to hide behind his mother's skirts, as Tyrion put it, and you see Stannis, like, he's the first one up the fucking wall. And you're like, that's the kind of man that soldiers want to be their king. They want to follow someone like that. They want to believe in someone like that. The fact that he made it through, scaled the wall, was like, cutting heads off right and left, not a scratch on him, you know.
Yeah, no helmet required.
No helmet required, exactly. It kind of lends to the whole, maybe he does have a god, you know, looking out for him, and regardless of whether that's true, he could just be lucky and have good soldiering instincts, but they don't know that, and the fact that he can do that and not get killed and not have a scratch on him, like, is going to, I think, up his sort of divine right.
Yeah, it totally adds to his myth. Like, definitely. And HBO seems to be pushing high contrast between each of the kings, right? So Joffrey's just like a sniveling little like asshole who can't do anything, and Stannis is just like really committed, and he would never ask anyone to do anything that he doesn't do himself. And then even like, you know, Tywin's not a king, but he's certainly a badass lord, and he used to be the Hand. And I think that it's important to note that instead of going after Robb, he went back to defend, you know, King's Landing. Whereas when Robb was not home, Robb didn't go home and take Winterfell. So that, you know, that's a contrast as well. So you can see that there are different avenues to winning.
Right.
You know, there's no one path.
And different judgments that, you know, different men are going to make. Actually, I mean, that's interesting that you bring up the sort of path that Tywin took that Robb did not, because, you know, listening to this litany of differences, it kind of is like, well, the one they're pointing out is who doesn't belong is Joffrey, because Robb's a badass who leads his men into battle. Stannis is a badass who leads his men into battle. Tywin is a badass who leads his men into battle. Yeah. Like, they're all kind of right there in the thick of it, like in the shit.
Even Tyrion is leading men into battle at this point.
Exactly. And then you have Joffrey, who is incapable of that. And, like, I don't know how old he's supposed to be in the books. I know they did age him up for the show.
I think it's like 14, 15.
Yeah, and so maybe that the difference between 14 and 17 actually matters, and that's maybe a weakness of aging him up. But
he does seem more cowardly because he's less of a child.
Exactly. If he were 14 and not capable of doing what his father Jaime did at 17 or what Ned Stark did at 17, okay, that's fine. But if he's 17 and not being able to do that, that's more telling than being like 14 and not able to do that.
Right. And this is like the honor of that. It's not like Stannis and Tywin and all these people are special. They're acting the way that they're supposed to act, right? Tyrion says flat out, you know, these men, why would they fight for you if you won't fight for them? And it's just like Joffrey just doesn't get it. Joffrey's like, well, mommy called me and that's my excuse and I want to live. But now we're dealing with the fact that, okay, so they were saved by Tywin and the Tyrells. They came in, and so what? We're supposed to just be happy? Like, everyone knows that Joffrey abandoned them, and he's going to be king now? Like, is there going to be problems?
I hope there better be problems. I mean, like, I think this is what's so unfortunate about the Lannister involvement, because I think that Tywin would have made an excellent king, and he probably was one of the best men qualified for that position, and just how the chips fell with the rebellion, you know, he by the end picked the winning side, but not enough to really be like in thick with them. Right. And that he was never going to be able to take that for himself. And so what happens is, with the way Cersei has been allowed to like raise Joffrey, which I want to come back to that, but I want to finish my point about Tywin. You know, he's kind of like his ethos has been completely divorced by that third generation, and so he's kind of stuck in a position where the person that is nominally the king that these people are supposed to be fighting for doesn't Tywin's going to actually have to help enforce like kind of a tyranny on these people who don't want to believe in Joffrey, who don't love him, who don't respect him, who don't want to be his people anymore, when Tywin himself would have been probably an amazing king and he would have been a hard king, but not necessarily cruel just for the sake of cruelty or cruel to keep people in line. The way I think everyone involved with Joffrey's kingship is going to have to be now in order to, like as Cersei put it, make them fear you more than the enemy. And that's I mean, it has to, like, stick in his craw to think, like, what a sniveling little shit, like, he's kind of doing all of this for. Like, it's like, I am kind of the last, bastion of my house.
Right, the last Lannister, right? Because
Yeah.
who knows what happened to Jaime, and then he's faced with Tyrion, who supposedly has done very well. He led men, he inspired them, he held the Mudgate until Tywin showed up, but he's still a dwarf, and for Tywin, that's a problem.
Yeah.
I definitely agree. He's a complicated man, and you wonder why he made the choices that he made, 20 years ago. But I think a lot of that had to do, remember, with the claim of the throne. People wonder why Ned didn't claim the Iron Throne, and why did Robert get it? Because Robert had Targaryen blood.
And see, that's not really addressed at all. It's in the show. If it has been, it was a throwaway line, and it's never been brought up since. And it's been more that the two of them rebelled, and Robert was the one who wanted to be king, whereas Ned just wanted to go back home to Winterfell.
Right. I mean, that's also true, but Robert had, I think his mother, it's like his grandfather or his great-grandfather was the son of a Targaryen princess. I think it's his grandfather. So he has Targaryen blood, so that's his claim, right? So it's always about who's who. But Tywin was the hand, and he seems to, maybe he'll take over that position again, or maybe, I mean, we don't really know what happened to Tyrion at this point. Is he alive? Is he dead? Right.
Which I can't believe he's dead, but that was quite a blow he got. His face is all cut up, and at first, like, when I saw that blow hit him, I thought, wait, did his head just get sliced in half? And I was waiting for it to slide off, and I was like, that's
Tarantino style.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, that's Tyrion. That can't happen to him.
But no, yeah, it went pretty deep. I think it went into his face.
Yeah.
Yeah, really uncomfortable looking.
Yeah.
But Pod, you were all hating on Pod. Look how cool Pod is now. Totally saved him.
Yes, that's his squire.
Yes, Podrick Payne.
Yeah.
Oh, I love Pod. He's so stupid. And he's so loyal. He was there. He's like, I will save you, sir. I will gut this guy and hold you.
Tyrion trusts him, and obviously he's right to. That scene with Varys when he's like, do you trust him? Yes. Okay, then. I'm just going to show all your secrets, so you better not have been lying about that. But obviously Tyrion's, right to trust him.
Yeah, he's definitely inspired loyalty in that boy. But can we talk about drunk Cersei?
Oh my God. This episode made me so sad that I've seen Cersei at her worst, which is, still is how she dealt with the direwolf Joffrey got bit situation. She was needlessly cruel. Like, I could see her saying, you have to kill Arya's wolf. That's the one that bit him. I'm still going to be upset about that, but I could see her at least passing that judgment when she's like, well, whatever, we'll kill the other one just because. That was so petty and so awful, and I just can't ever forgive her for that. Like, I wish she were slightly more subtle and slightly more kind of big picture, because she's more like me than I am comfortable admitting. Like, everything she was saying in that room, she's like basically just sitting there getting drunk, and she's like, yes, I'm supposed to be an inspiration for these women. Later they're going to talk about how brave I was and how I inspired them, and I'm like, the whole time, the last place I want to fucking be is in this room with these crying women who are praying to gods I don't believe in for help that isn't going to come. And, meanwhile, like, I would rather have a sword in my hand and go die fighting alongside my brother than be here, but I have no choice. This fucking sucks. And
right. Definitely. But I think that this is like a huge turning point in like how a reader will deal with Cersei, or how, or someone watching the show is going to think about Cersei, because they're always going to think about, the sloshing wine and how she deals under pressure, and she kind of falls apart. And she talks a lot of shit, but she totally falls apart. And you see that in Joffrey as well. And I think it's great because she talks so much shit about how she should have been born a man, and she's sitting there wearing a breastplate and all this crap, and she won't let her son fight.
Oh, yeah. Well, and this goes back to what I wanted to say earlier about the way she's raised Joffrey. Like, I kind of I don't understand what her problem is. Like, but she is just like, I guess it really is that he's the only, like, my children are the only thing I will allow myself to love, so I'm just going to, like, strangle them with my affection.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that, you know, she won't let Joffrey go fight, the fact that he has not been raised to be a knight, even though by the time whether he's 14 in the books or 17 in the show, like, he should actually have been a squire. He should be, like, a knight the way Loras is. Loras is only, like, 16,
mm-hmm.
right? Or he was 2 years ago when he won the tournament. Maybe he's 18 now. You know, Jaime at 17 was sitting on the fucking Iron Throne after just killing the Mad King. You know, like, that's what her son should have been, and she has kept him from being able to do that.
And it's what she idolizes herself. It's not like she doesn't believe in that. She totally buys into that. She wants to be part of that, and yet she doesn't allow her children. I mean, she's sitting there coddling Tommen, you know, like, oh, everything's going to be okay. I'll tell you the story about a mama bear, but really I'm going to poison you if we fall, because I'm not going to let them use you.
Right. And, you know, instead of trying to tell him to, you know, be brave, or like taking him out to like watch the battle and say, look, men are dying to protect you, and like actually making like, I could see like fucking Ned Stark, not that he would be in the keep, but I could see him telling Catelyn, hey, I want you to take the girls out so they can see what's being done to protect them, you know, like, and make a lesson out of it. Instead, it's just like, I'm going to shield you from everything that could possibly hurt you, and then, you know,
you have no clue what's going on.
Exactly. You don't know how to deal with adversity. You don't know how to deal with the world. You don't understand anything, and you're just a complete, like, spoiled douchebag. And
I thought it was really weird that she made this big deal about Ser Ilyn being there, and then it's like, oh, because if we're taken, then he's going to kill us. Which would be like the warrior way to go, right? You would knife yourself or have someone behead you, because, you know, historically that's the way aristocrats were killed. Was through beheading, because it was faster than hanging. And yet she goes the woman's route, it's been called the woman's weapon before, with poison.
Yeah.
You know, you'd think that she would try to at least fucking die honorably, but she just totally just falls apart. I was, you know, I don't know. I feel really terrible for Cersei sometimes, because watching someone you hate sort of fizzle and die instead of like blowing up spectacularly is disappointing.
Yeah. I think, you know, here's, I guess, the conundrum of her character is that she has all these impulses. You know, basically she says, I was essentially what Arya was, you know, I was more interested in swordplay. I was, you know, more interested in all these things that my brother was doing, and yet I was forced to be this perfect lady, except the difference is that she actually absorbed the lessons about being a lady and, you know, did that. And so it's hard to say, like, how much of that was just in her mind, it's like a romantic vision of herself, the way Sansa, like, pretends to be someone she's not, you know, all the time. And how much was actually kind of her true character. Like, was the tomboy her true character that got ground out beneath Tywin, the worst father ever? Or was that just her romantic view of herself, when in reality she is kind of a meek Sansa who goes along with what she's supposed to go along with? You know?
Well, and it's funny because we know for a fact that there were noble women out there being rebellious. Look at Lyanna. The stories of Lyanna don't really jive with the, you know, a perfect lady, right?
Yeah, I mean, you know, Ned has, I forget what has been said in the show versus what's come up in the books, but, you know, Lyanna was wild, and there's implications that she ran away with someone else because she didn't want to marry Robert Baratheon, even though he was, like, totally in love with her or whatever. And, you know, Cersei didn't run away. She didn't tell her father, I will, you know, run off to a tower and ruin myself completely, you know, with someone else rather than marry him. She married.
Right, and you can't argue that the Starks have less honored than the Lannisters. Like, we know that they were both highly focused on family honor.
Yeah. And the difference is, like, maybe Cersei has all these, you know, feelings, but she doesn't actually have the balls to carry them out. And
yeah, she never ran away. I mean, she sort of accepted that she was just going to be placed into this slot that she didn't want to be in, and
just resented it, but didn't actually do anything to get herself out of it.
She's so bitter. It's just like that whole like, and one day you will be Joffrey's. Enjoy. It's just like, oh God.
Yeah, she definitely can't hold her liquor very well. Or she was just like, you know what? I might die tonight, and I'm not gonna fucking lie. Like, it could have been that. It might not have been the drink at all, but she just made the choice that she was just gonna speak the truth if it was her last night on Earth. And I can see that actually. It's kind of a I don't know, euphoria all its own, where you're just like, just put your guard down, like, whatever. I'm just gonna say what I think, and like, it's like you get drunk on that, on truth.
Right. No, that is true. And she didn't know that Tywin was coming. It was a secret, so it's not like she was, swaggering around. She really thought that was it, that they were going to die.
Everybody thought that was it.
And then the Hound running away.
Oh God, that was the best. That speech. Fuck the Kingsguard. Fuck the city. Fuck the king.
Fuck the king. And then Joffrey's like, oh my God, people are telling me no all day today. Like,
this is the worst day ever. And like, how can your dog turn on you? Because he's not a fucking dog, asswipe.
Well, that, and if you hit your dog, eventually,
yeah,
dog's gonna bite you.
Yeah, exactly. So
him going back and sort of offering to take Sansa away to Winterfell, which was hilarious. I was like, don't do that. Don't go there. That would not go well for you.
Yeah. Although I wanted her to go with him. Like, even knowing that Theon's there, like, whatever. She ends up married to Theon. He's not going to live very long. It's better than being married to Joffrey.
Well, true. And I mean, I understand this. That here we're talking about ladies sort of turning from what they were brought up and rejecting that and sort of going out into the world. Which is what Sansa would have been doing, because no matter where she ended up, whether she was taken straight to Cat or back to Winterfell or wherever, she's still on the road with the Hound. Like, there's no honor in that, right? Like, she would have lost everything.
I guess that's true. Although I don't know that maybe she could never have been married off to be an alliance anymore, but is she still, like, hoping for that, or would that be a relief for her to get, maybe she can take Arya's place in marrying a Frey. They're not going to give a shit. Like, it's still a daughter of Winterfell, close to home. Nobody's going to care. Like, and she doesn't have to, be used anymore. And so even if,
But I think what Sansa has come to realize in the last few months, or however long that this has been, that her only use is in how people can use her. And once she takes herself out of the equation, then no one's going to keep her alive anymore.
Oh.
Right? I mean, it would be great if she would just run away, and that would solve a lot of the problems. And obviously, like, if you're a smart author, you're not going to do that, because that closes a lot of avenues for, dramatic action.
Right.
But, like, on the other side, Sansa knows that she's blocking a few avenues, right? She's like this roadblock for the Lannisters. Like, they still have to play like she's going to marry Joffrey and all this shit. And it's more important now than ever, especially with the Tyrell standing there next to the Iron Throne. Like, hi, I have this sister. Marjorie is angling, right? She is.
Well, see, I don't think that was on Sansa's mind. I think it was, I think Sansa thought the city was about to fall to Stannis, and she was like, he will not kill me. Like, he will.
Well, yeah, she doesn't know that they're there, definitely.
Right. Or, marry me off to someone else, but it won't be Joffrey, so I'm out of that, and I'll be safe. And, like, I think she assumed that Stannis was taking the city, and that was going to be her out. And so, Sansa being Sansa, she wants to stay where it's safe, and not, undertake this adventure, and go. I mean, aside from being alone in the company of a man that she's obviously afraid of, she just the idea of having to travel alone and probably go through the woods, and it would be hard and difficult and scary, and
and who knows how far they would get.
Right, and there's no guarantee that they would make it. And she's like, you know what? No, I think I'm safe here. I'm going to stay where it's safe. And so it's one of Martin's kind of dramatic ironies that it never turns out the way the character thinks it's going to turn out.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, like, if you're Sansa, you think two things are going to happen. Either Stannis is going to win and he's going to come in and barter me away to my mother or whatever, because Stannis, as far as she knows, is an ally of Winterfell, that he's always gotten along.
Right.
With the Starks. Or, and then, the Cersei will kill herself, and that solves a whole bunch of problems.
Yep.
Or they win and she continues sort of doing what she's doing, which is scary, but she kind of knows. I mean, maybe she is holding out hope that Rob's going to come and save her someday. I don't know. It's hard to know. It's hard to be in her head and think, well, what is she? Is she planning anything? Is she trying to think things through? But if I were her, I would not go with the drunk hound into the woods. I just wouldn't. That just doesn't seem like a good idea. Like, yeah, getting away would be great, but eventually he would either abandon her or rape her, and both of those things are unacceptable.
I think I don't know. I'm not Sansa. I think I'd take my chances with the hound just to get the fuck out.
Right, but you could feed yourself. Like, Sansa can't, she doesn't even know how to go north, you know?
Yeah, she can't even find north.
I don't know. I think that she's learning a lot, though, that she's not as impulsive. I think that original flavor Sansa would have gone with him because she would have gone anywhere, to anyone who even pretended to be kind to her.
Yeah.
So she's getting at least a little bit more cautious. A lot more cautious.
Well, so someone who wasn't so cautious this episode was Shae.
Oh yeah, she was. Hey, you know, I don't know what the hell Shae is doing.
Yeah, she's like, I have to say goodbye to someone. Like, if the city falls and Tyrion's dead, it's not like you're not. I mean, you're not going to get to say goodbye to him if that room gets overrun with soldiers.
I don't know where she's going to go. Like, is she going to go out to the battlefield, like, and look for him? Is that her plan?
Yeah, I wasn't sure exactly where she thought she was going to go say goodbye to him at. You may as well.
Or she's lying and she's leaving.
Yeah, or that. Good point.
Yeah, I mean, because I thought that. I was like, oh, they're making it seem like, they're making it more, I don't know, concrete that Shae actually does feel something for him, because you're always kind of like, yeah, he pays her. Because they keep bringing that up, like, especially with Bronn and stuff. It's like, it's all these people that he pays to sort of be his friend, to be his lover, and
right.
Is any of it genuine? And you feel that with Shae a lot. Like, is Shae genuine? And I felt like they were trying to say, oh, it's genuine. She's going to go look for him. You know, she wants to say goodbye. But it would be just so typical, right? Of like George Martin or the show or whatever, twists and turns. Because Shae's, obviously filling a role that she didn't fill in the book. So I kind of don't know what her plan is right now.
Right.
To sort of just be like, oh, I'm going to lie to everyone and just kind of leave.
Yeah. Well, there is no saying goodbye. Either the city holds and life resumes what it was, in which case she keeps being Sansa's handmaid and his lover and doesn't have to say goodbye because he's still there, or he's dead on the battlefield, in which case, whatever. But I don't
know how smart it would be for her to even continue being the handmaid. Cersei seems to be onto her at this point.
Yeah, and the only question is, was Cersei drunk enough not to remember that? And I don't think that was the case, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But, but if the city falls, there's no one to say goodbye to. Like, he's gone. Like, either he's dead or imprisoned, and so,
No, yeah, true.
Yeah.
I really don't know what her plan is. And the fact she's like, no one will rape me. I have this tiny knife.
Yeah.
I'm sure she has skills.
But that pretty much only works for, like, one-on-one combat with a guy you can take by surprise, a la Osha with the, oh, Theon sent me out here to warm up your night, soldier.
Right. I mean, but let's assume that Shae and her 10 years of whoring around Westeros is familiar with city sacking and the way soldiers act after a battle, and
yeah,
that's how she met Tyrion. It was in the midst of a battle, so I assume she can take care of herself, or she at least knows what to expect.
Yeah. No, I mean, I wasn't that worried about her. I just thought that was I don't know. A show probably more for Sansa than, like, how she would actually do it, because she's a whore. Like, she might, even if she loves Tyrion or is loyal to him, if it's a choice between, like, getting gang raped or, like making the side eye at one guy and going off with him and letting him, fuck you, but then, like, that's
defend
it.
You. Right.
But yeah, exactly. That's what she's gonna do. So.
Which is basically the arrangement she has with Tyrion. He just happens to be really nice and to give her nice things, as well as defend her from all the other people that want to have her.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, let's go back. What did you think about the wildfire?
Oh my goodness. I'm glad that they brought that old man out to the battlement so that he was like standing there fucking jumping up and down clapping. It's like, I can't wait to see it. I've been waiting 20 years to see this. This is going to be amazing. Can I piss on it? Can we start it that way? You know?
I know, I loved it. I was like, I see you, Roy Treats. I see you being so happy and filled with glee.
But no, oh my god, that wildfire was off the fucking chain. It was like, they were not fucking around with that stuff.
No, I know. It was kind of great because, you know, like we said again, this is an epic. They don't have endless money to throw at the battle. So I think they used it really well. They made it, especially that one major explosion, like that. They just did a great job, and I was happy. And I felt like there was enough fire. Like, I thought it was going to be this cheesy shit where a couple people would be on fire. Like, there were a few cheesy moments where, like, one too many people threw themselves off a ship. Like, I get you're on fire, you're gonna throw yourself into the water, but like, it was all slow-mo, and it was all just, you know, like when a stuntman's on fire, it always looks the same.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, it's kind of cheesy, stop doing that. But I thought it was gonna be like more of that, where there'd just be like little bits of fire everywhere, and like boats sailing through it, and no, but they definitely made it very grand.
Yeah, that was one of the few places that we actually got the wide view, and I think I think that was appropriate to see, like, just how big and awful that fire was. Because if it's supposed to destroy, you know, a significant portion of their fleet, like, it has to be a big fire, and it was.
Definitely. Were you okay with the fact that this entire episode was nothing but King's Landing? I mean, we didn't see Dany, and now we know why they packed everyone into the last episode, even if it was for a few seconds.
Right. Yeah.
This episode, we could forget that people existed by next week, you know.
Yeah. I actually love the fact that they didn't do anything else, like that they just did a close focus on this night. I mean, there were enough storylines there. You know, there's Sansa, there's Tyrion, there's Cersei, there's Joffrey, there's the Hound, there's Stannis, there's Davos and his son. You know,
but Melisandre was curiously absent.
Well, but she got left behind way back, you know, like wherever Renly's camp was, where they
right.
But yeah, so there were enough storylines and enough people to follow that I didn't feel like we were shorted on, I guess, characters, because for every scene with Jon Snow or Dany, we're not getting a scene with Sansa or Joffrey or something, you know, in a given episode. But I actually liked it. I love that they kept the focus so tight, because it kind of, I think it really allowed the sort of tension to stay there, you know, going from like the soldiers preparing for battle, the way, you know, Bronn was like drinking and whoring with his friends, and then the moment with him and the Hound, and are they going to fight? But oh, the battle's coming. And then Tyrion and Varys in their very intellectual way, sort of discussing what's going to come. The women, you know, doing it, and then actual fighting. Like, I think, like, it would have diminished the sort of claustrophobia and tension of the battle if they had then said, okay, well, we're going to go visit Jon Snow hanging out in the snow, you know.
Yeah. No, I agree. I liked it. I like that we got to spend so much time with each character. But Bronn is such a Renaissance man. Guy can sing. He can use a longbow. I mean, what can he not do? What can Bronn not do?
I'm starting to think maybe Bronn actually could read that name.
Yeah, right?
I mean, any man in Westeros who's brave enough to have an a cappella group, like, could read. That's just the way that works.
Yeah, that song is in the book, and it's quite a famous and favorite song of many fans.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you think that any of the renditions we've heard did it justice?
You know, I don't know. A couple days ago, they released that version, the one that was in the credits of the Reigns of Castamere. I think it's by the band The Republic, I think. And I was like, oh my god, an official Reigns of Castamere. Because if you go and type in Reigns of Castamere on Google, you're going to get like 30 YouTube videos of people doing various renditions of it. Like, no, for true. I think there's even like death metal versions of it. It's pretty cool. So I was like, all right, what's this official version? And I was disappointed because it wasn't very medieval. It was kind of just like singer-songwritery, groovy guy singing in the dark, kind of. I don't know. I've listened to it probably 15 times. So it's growing on me. growing on me.
But it was sort of modern folk, not medieval folk.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know. Like, I was hoping that there would be a little bit more cackly tune in it. Because it is kind of like a ha ha ha, I'm a badass, song. It was just kind of monotone. I don't know. I don't want to overly criticize it because I'm just so happy that it was in the show. And not only in the show, like in the credits, but the fact that Bronn and company were singing it. I got so happy. I was so happy. I was like, sing it. Sing it again. Favorite song.
Where did you learn that? Drunk Lannisters. Apparently that's a thing. Lannisters get drunk and then spill their guts and say things they shouldn't say.
Yeah, right. Well, it's a famous folk song, so it's not like. Apparently, this is a song that many people sing especially in the Lannister Hell areas, and it is about Tywin. Just FYI.
Oh,
I don't know if you picked that up, but it's about Tywin.
I did not know that.
Yes, it's not like an old song. It is definitely a song that from Tywin's time.
Mm-hmm. Well, that actually raises an interesting point about Bronn's background. I mean, we don't really know where he comes from. I mean, is he from, the same place? I mean, is he kind of a Lannister man and where he was born, if not how he was raised?
Right, yeah. I you know what, I don't know. That's not something I know.
Maybe that's why he and Tyrion get on so well, or maybe that's why he trusted Tyrion to be good to his word when Tyrion's like, Lannister always pays his debts. He's like, you know what? Lannisters do.
But it's funny that they're like, oh, how do you know the Lannister song? And I was like, oh, it is a Lannister song. I'm glad that that's its unofficial title. That was so, I don't know, it's like small moments like that make me really happy. Other than the fact that that girl was sitting on, the one whore that we see all the time who never gets any lines, finally got a line. Mm-hmm. Even though she was sitting on his lap the whole time, and all I could think of was, gosh, she's really waxed for a medieval. I was just kind of like, I couldn't get past that.
Where's your Merkin budget when you need it?
I know, right? They used up all the Merkin budget on the actual wig budget. They couldn't.
Yeah.
They couldn't
do both.
They couldn't do both. They're like, I don't know. We could blow up a boat, or we could make all the whores the Merkins.
Or pay the actresses an extra $1,000 to grow it in themselves. They had months and months to plan this shit. I'm sorry, they could have grown it in.
Oh my God, can you imagine? I don't know why. I mean, to me, it's more overtly pandering to the male viewer when they do that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, why are they all porny wax? Why can't they just be? Yeah, I'm not saying let's be, 1960s, 70s style, huge bushes,
right.
old Playboy style. But, they could have just made them more natural looking, or, some people could have had some hairy armpits. It happens when you watch period films, and I don't think anybody's ever been oh, disgusting, never watching that movie again.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't know why. I don't know why they're obsessed with that. I don't know why I'm obsessed with it, but
well, it bothers me as a female viewer as well that none of the women look like the women I know look like. The women I know do not shave it all off or get it waxed. And,
no, the only people that do that are porn stars.
Porn stars and actresses or girls who want to be mistaken for one or the other. And so I don't even care if it's a male fantasy. You know what? You should be lucky you're getting to see Snatch at all. So yourself if you have a problem, with what it looks like. But the thing is, I think that because it's so common in, the kind of actor culture now that I think the ethos has become that actors are actually more embarrassed about showing the fact that they have pubic hair than they are about showing their actual pubis, which is just fucking weird.
It is weird, and it bothers me too because I just watch it and I'm so distracted by the fact that it's totally bare that I'm just kind of that's weird. When did she do that? Did they have wax? And I'm going through my whole how would you go about grooming yourself in Westeros?
Do you do it with a straight razor? Is it a honey wax? Either way, it's dangerous and painful. You just let it grow, honey.
Yeah, it's just not realistic. And then the fact that she was just sitting there like a dummy on on his knee for 10 minutes while he talked, and I was just kind of distracted by her.
Yeah.
It's weird how I'm okay with it if there's, like, sex involved. Like, really, if people are having sex and they're naked, it could be gratuitous, but I'm like, well, at least there's a point, right?
Right.
But she was just like a prop, just sitting there for the whole scene.
Well, see, that actually, it was kind of interesting to me that obviously the men who were there before the battle were actually not necessarily all that interested in the horse. Like, the fact that she was sitting there on his lap naked and he's like, yeah, whatever, I'm going to keep, like, telling my story and singing my song, you know, like, that really wasn't where any of their minds were.
No, she was just a prop to be like, we are men and we're going to go battle and, you know, naked ladies and beer, yeah, and I don't know, it was just weird and kind of stupid, and I really liked the fact that he sang the song and everything, but I just found it distracting.
The song would have been enhanced if there were not her on his lap, I think.
Yeah, at least it wasn't Roz, right? Like,
Roz is like in the chapel somewhere praying for Littlefinger to come back so that she can stop, you know, she can go back to doing what she does best, which is running his brothel, instead of being ensconced in the Red Keep. Well, something we haven't really talked about directly is the Varys and Tyrion scene.
Mm-hmm.
And how that, I think, is possibly the first time we've actually seen Varys let down his mask and actually speak something true. Like, I believed every word that he was saying in that scene. By the end of it, I'm like, no, he's actually, like, been speaking the truth tonight.
The how I was cut scene?
Yeah. The scene where he's like, have I ever told you how I was cut? Maybe someday I will, but let me tell you that there are things that I've seen that I wish I had not. And, you know, obviously the implication is some of them involving what the witches of Melisandre's ilk are capable of.
Yes, because we do know that Varys is from, he's not from Westeros, he's from Essos, so he would be familiar with that type of thing.
Yeah, and the fact that he actually got, like, tears in his eyes, like, that didn't feel like a show, that felt genuine. Like, he actually was sitting there thinking about, like, horrors that he has lived through and how horrific it would be to him for Stannis to take the city and the throne, especially with a woman like that kind of behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And that he's, you know, maybe has enough faith in Tyrion to know that Tyrion will try, but not quite enough to think that he'll prevail, because he's realistic, and, you know, odds are 50-50 at best. And he's, like, actually genuinely, like, considering what the implications are, and they terrify him. And that's interesting.
The only thing I personally truly believe about Varys is that he is invested in the future of Westeros. Whatever that future is, I don't know. Why he is invested in it, I do not know. But I do know that he gives a shit what is happening, clearly, right? Mm-hmm. But when he was telling that story, I did flash back to when Cersei cried about her son that died, when she was talking to Kat. Which again, I was also sort of like, I don't know if this is real or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that one I'm still on the fence about. But the thing with Varys actually felt very real, because there was nothing. I guess because there was nothing for him to gain in that situation. Like, if you know Tyrion at all, you know that Tyrion also gives a shit. So Tyrion is going to do his best to defend the city. I mean, that's what he did.
Right, he's Varys' best ally right now, because he's probably the other person who's least likely to just run away.
Right, exactly. But, you know, Varys kind of knows that about him, and he knows that he doesn't have to be goaded into going to the front and leading the men if that void appears, and he has to. Like, so there was really nothing for him to gain by sharing that, which is, I guess, maybe why it felt more legitimate.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. I don't know if Varys, I mean, we didn't see Varys after that, so I would assume that who's planning his escape should Stannis take the city.
Yeah, he was in a tunnel somewhere just waiting.
Yeah, because Stannis is not the type of person that comes in and says, all of you people who used to work for the usurper, that's fine, you can stay.
Yeah, he's not going to keep the bureaucracy in place.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. Littlefinger and Varys and Pycelle and all those fuckers, they would not have a job anymore.
They probably would not have heads anymore.
That or to the wall. Let's give Stannis some credit. He might allow them to go to the wall.
Yes, and which I don't know. I'm not
Varys
sure.
On the wall. That would be hilarious.
Yeah, well, I'm just thinking, like, what's going to happen when Varys goes north of the wall and, like, hooks up with Mance Rayder and is like, let me tell you how to, like, take over the entire kingdom. I don't know that Stannis is dumb enough to allow that to happen, honor or no honor, you know.
Right. Well, there's always someone scheming and planning somewhere. That's Westeros, right?
Exactly.
I didn't see the preview for next episode, which is the finale, which we are going to be doing a totally drunk cast.
Yes.
On.
Be forewarned. Yeah, they kind of touched on everybody. We saw a little bit of Jon Snow getting yanked around by his chains. We saw Jock and Hagar like coming up to Arya and being like, okay, remember how we said you're going to have to do what I told you? And we don't know what he's telling her to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm super excited because I thought, like, he was going to disappear from her life. So I'm happy we still get a little more Jockin.
Yay!
Oh, there was some interesting shenanigans with Brienne and Jaime, and I don't work for the Starks, and she pulls out her sword, and I'm like, oh my god, is she going to finally kill him? What's but yeah, so looks like we'll actually touch on everybody next week.
Oh yeah, it is the finale, hopefully.
Yeah, and I think Danny might actually venture into the House of the Undying this season, because the last scene of the preview was Ser Jorah like dropping to his knees.
Oh God. Well, should she go into the House of the Undying, and should people say things to her, I think that you should write it down.
Okay.
That's all I got. That's all I got. Either tape it so you can watch it again, or write that shit down. Because as I've complained before, when random people come up to you and tell you like shit you need to know and then walk away, how do they remember? They're always like, oh right, you just prophesied something to me, and I'll just remember that forever, even though I can't remember what the fucking ticket guy said to me.
Right. No, you remember a general impression. You remember, like, you think about it later. You're like, you know, now that I think about it, what that guy said was actually kind of like creepy. And at the time, I just sort of dismissed it. I'd had a drink. I was like, whatever. But you know, like he's telling me that like my firstborn child is going to die of the plague. What?
True. So let that be my wisdom for you. Should she go to the House of the Undying, and should people talk to her there, or around there, or before there, or, you know, in the general vicinity of the House of the Undying? You know, take notes.
Okay, well, I will be doing my normal, like, note-taking watching the show. I will not be watching the show drunk. Let's be clear. We will be talking about the show drunk. Yeah, the show will be watched sober. It's just the talking about it that will not.
Right.
Be.
So, do you think that, just to end with, do you think that those fans who were very unhappy, who are still telling me that they are unhappy about last week, were happy this week?
If they weren't, then there's just no pleasing them, because like this episode, I'm not going to say it was nothing but action, but this episode had a lot of action. It had a lot of doing. It had a lot of culmination of the moments that have been slowly built in episodes like last week's where nothing happened. You know, so if anybody didn't like this episode, just like stop watching the show, because you obviously don't get it.
Yeah, I think if you're so invested in the book that, and I understand that there are certain books that maybe I would not be able to watch a movie or a TV show of, because it's something I hold so close to my heart that it would be very difficult, right?
I've never seen a movie of Pride and Prejudice for that reason.
Oh yeah, none of them, not even BBC with.
Nope.
Oh wow, okay. I don't want to get off topic, but damn.
So I agree. So, but maybe these books are that for you, and maybe, you know, if that's the case, y'all stop watching.
Yeah, and that's fine. I just, like I said, be zen, enjoy. And that's, you know, hopefully things will come back on track. We'll see with the finale, and then I will give you my, then if so, I will rant about the changes. If things don't clear up and come back to where they should be in next week's episode, then I might be ranting. We'll see.
Something to look forward to.
Yeah, all right.
That wraps us up for this episode. Thanks for listening. Come back next week, and always remember to ask, more wine, sir?